Melbourne then have possession and a skinny lead as we begin the last 15 minutes. And from the third quarter.
Melbourne, Southby still in poor form in goals. Just the 6 from 10, 60%. 5 from 6 from Bryant. So she stayed well on target right through the match, 83%. Contacts, the accuracy not there, but enjoying more possession in that third quarter. 6 from 10 for Purser at 60%. 6 from 9 from Delaney at 66%. I think, though, the calibre of some of their goals, very aggressive.
So 19 attempts put up in the third quarter by Contacts to Melbourne 16, and Contacts won the quarter 12-11. A further indication of how tight this game is, and first quarter was 12-all, second quarter was won by Melbourne 12-10, the third quarter was won by Contacts 12-11.
And the crowd not liking that backline throw-in decision from Sharon Burge. No prizes for knowing they want a Contacts win.
Harvey to Cobb.
This is certainly one of the best matches we've seen in the competition.
Purser. Lynch timed it nicely, the jump, but Purser wasn't phased. And now Contacts can lead if they convert possession here. It'll be Harvey from the side.
Where you at? Play.
Cobb. Harvey. I don't know how the commentators are going to save something for the next match. This has been a rip snorter.
Well, I think it'll be more of the same.
Delaney.
It's just about as good a netball as you'll see anywhere for skill.
Contact ball attack.
As well as intensity.
Where you at?
Benison, Taverner.
Stand a third.
So a couple of minutes gone in the last, and it's 36-all.
Good pressure over the ball from Audine Cobb.
Southby doesn't want to shoot from there. Bryant has been the steadier of the two. Must sink this one.
He's got it, didn't you? Put the mocker on her as well.
Southby. Well, if she survives this match, has she got anything left for the final on that tender ankle? Harvey. Cobb, Delaney. Cobb nearly held onto it for too long. There's great pressure in defence from Melbourne.
Yeah, the full court defence from both teams is quite amazing. And I think your point is quite fair that whoever survives this match will have lost a lot in the getting to the final.
Lynch. Taverner. McInnes, Flyner. Melbourne get out of jail here. Maybe their greater depth would better equip them to go to a final. Flyner.
I think Melbourne are the best equipped team in the competition in terms of bringing out fresh legs and not losing anything in their combination.
There are the Synovus players waiting their turn to take on Sydney Energy.
Well, if they've come to study the match, they've got problems because it's very difficult to know who to watch. You've got to watch both with equal commitment, and it opened right up there. Sutter caught out wide, chasing the feed. Watch Sutter here. She tries to take the feed, but they swing it to the post to Southby. And the reply at the other end of the court from Contacts.
So nearly 11 minutes left. Plenty of time for it to go either way as it remains a one-goal game.
Melbourne in quite a good position in that they have a one-goal lead and they have the centre running to their advantage.
Sutter. The crowd wanted a held ball.
That, of course, can come undone now with the Contacts intercept might swing things their way.
Sanders to Cobb.
Barney's contact, goal attack.
Purser to Sanders.
The hold's put on by Delaney at the back half of the circle. They swing it round to her.
Obstruction against Taverner.
Interesting, Steve, that Melbourne's been Well, the second most consistent team. Great take there from Taverner. Sydney Energy, the most consistent, and yet upsets in the air.
Beautiful drive down court from Melbourne, and they retake the lead.
McInnes at full stretch, but Taverner up in the air, leaps high. She creates the opportunity for Melbourne.
Contax trail by 1, but have it again. Harvey, Cobb and McInnes have had a great match against each other. Delaney. Once more. It's Melbourne.
Oh, and that was
Jan Cross thought about it.
Norma Plummer is out of her seat, feet stamping. Yeah, there was hesitation on the whistle. We'll try and take another look at that if we can, but that's something Melbourne's been complaining about at that end of the court all through the match. The contact and the chopping on the hands of the attacking player as they take possession. And an opportunity gone missing for Melbourne.
Neal. 39-38, Melbourne lead it. 8:40 left. It's going to be a low-scoring final quarter.
I think we've said all match the defence has been superb. Taverner takes another one.
Benison, Southby. Liner runs to the corner away from Neal.
Southby puts the roll and becomes back to where she started.
Southby.
And have a look here. This is where Lynch goes up for the take. No, it looked, well, the contact was really before the take, and then it was just through the hands. But you can see the strength of the appeal from Lynch.
It's Melbourne by 1, and they have possession. 7:50 on the clock. The winner to go through to the final and play one of the Sydney teams. Sharon Burge indicates Melbourne possession. Southby. Teams are 5-all in this last quarter. Through nearly 8 minutes of play. Neal.
Oh, the drive from Neal. Liner set her up for the fall. She pays for that.
Purser. Cobb.
I think Cobb's had a mighty game. One of the best performances I've seen on Simone McInnes. And at the moment, the balance lies with the contact shooters. They've got to stay in this game.
McInnes.
Turnover Steve are locked at 6 apiece. Penalties 5 against Melbourne, 7 against Contax. Pretty balanced final quarter.
Possession to Contax. Neal with the quicker hands. Harvey, Cobb. The Contax have found it almost impossible to get it to their goalers in the last couple of minutes.
I think Lynch and Taverner have lifted another degree for this last quarter. That's a good hold there from Delaney. Good positioning. And that's the leveler.
40-all. Contax with possession. 6 minutes to go. If they're level at full time, they'll play extra time. 7 minutes each way. It's on the cards. Purser.
Oh, great shot from Sharon Purser. Pressure shot.
Calm as you please.
Cobb holds it up, fires it into Purser. She takes it well and nets.
Bryant. Oh. And Sharon Burge wants it brought back. That's against Southby.
And so difficult to hear the call. I mean, umpires really resorting to signals because the crowd's getting right behind this Contax effort.
Sanders.
Purser runs into the mess at the top of the circle. That one goes wanting.
Wilson and Ango, the bundle of nerves. They team up by 1, but they've just created the turnover. McInnes.
Liner runs out of room. The pressure was on. Harvey signaling she was out of court.
Benison. Flyner again.
Harvey very nearly late into the circle of defence, so anxious was she to alert Jan Cross to that sideline throw. It's a goal now, though. The centre now running with Contax. Norma Plummer there on the bench. Great shot of her.
Yeah,
just frantic.
Normally doesn't have too much to say, but if ever you're going to, it's got to be now. Semi-final, 42 all, 4 to go. Cobb.
Contact ball attack.
Goes against Delaney, backing into Taverner. Time's been called by Jan Cross because the ball's gone off the back.
Time on the whistle.
And Delaney here puts the hip through Janine Lee. No, it's Taverner.
Contact. Late.
And this time a shoulder charge against Cobb, late in. And the umpire's calling every drop ball so the time isn't used up by the players in chasing the ball.
Taverner, Benison checks her feet. She's just in. Flyner, 42 all, 3:30 to go. Bryant.
Nice ball from Benison to Bryant, but no goal.
Neal, Contax need to keep calm here as Cobb and Sanders go for the same ball. They're on the same team. Delaney.
And Catherine Harvey playing a great captain's role here for Contact. She's really directing the traffic down court. Well, I'm not sure about that call or that lack of call. That one's worth another look. I mean, something happened. It can't just be ignored.
Oh, Delaney, great take. She's a mile from home.
Great shot.
Going.
Let's have a look here. It would have been a great ball if Purser could have taken, but Lynch right through the body on her. Needed a call, that one. I mean, this is for a place in a final for the Prime Minister's Cup.
Cobb stretches. McInnes gathers.
Wing attack.
2:30. Oh, Neal, great take out of the hands of Flyner.
And McInnes hesitated. She needed to give it or look elsewhere, but she's answered the error.
Lynch, Taverner, Flyner. Low-scoring match. What quality of defence. And Neal was just offside. Great match. It's worthy of a final. There are two other great teams in the semis as well. Southby.
Flyner was close to footwork then. But that's the lead.
And Melbourne have the centre pass. Contax have to construct a turnover here somehow.
And this is again how just luck of the game. The centre now running with Melbourne, so they've got the break and then the centre.
Oh, Bryant, so lucky. Maybe that's the bit of luck they were looking for. 1:40 to go. Sanders, Contax have to goal quickly and then get the ball back. Delaney, will she shoot from there? Oh!
Using the post.
Using the post against Purser. Can't believe the call.
Next to the post.
And the match is starting to slip away from Adelaide Contax. Southby. Flyner. They don't have to hurry. The crowd will boo if they don't make a visible effort to get it to the goal.
Contact centre, Melbourne.
A minute to go.
No time.
And time still being held at every opportunity. I think it's not quite long enough, though, for Contax to recover. This one could seal it. Sutter up high. She had possession. She runs after it, and ironically, that's one they don't call time on.
Sutter, Harvey, Neal, they've got to get it there so quickly.
Whose centre will it be if they score from this? I think it rests with Contax.
Delaney must go in.
Rebound, great rebound from the young shooter.
Oh. And again, this time it's Purser.
And of course, it's eating up time every rebound. It's a Melbourne centre.
Flyner. Harvey gets a touch. They've got to be quick about it. The timekeeper gets out of a chair. Go. Harvey. Advance the penalty. And there it is, full time. The home side denied. Jan Cross acknowledges that Sharon Burgess called full-time, and Melbourne get there by a goal. They're into the final. The crowd jeers, but they should be cheering what was a great match. Sure, the home side has been beaten, but what a wonderful game as Norma Plummer and Marg Ango exchange handshakes, and you don't like to see a loser after a great game like that. But boy, weren't Melbourne made to fight hard for it. They've got there. The team that finishes second in the competition beats the team that finishes third by that margin, 44-43. Anne Sargent talks to Simone McInnes.
Thanks, Steve. Well, Simone, congratulations on a superb result. You're into the final.
Yes, we are into the final. Certainly did it the hard way. One goal. It was a tough match all the way through, so it's going to be really hard for us to pull ourselves back up again and go again tomorrow for the final.
We all knew that last week's match between the two teams would count for nothing, but it was a whole new ball game. Contax really lifted, particularly their start, put you under pressure, and I thought you lost your timing.
Well, we did. It took us a long while to get into the match, our timing, to get it right. It came in patches. It wasn't consistent right throughout the game. That's something that we'll really have to work on again for the final. But, I mean, we hung on and we won by 1 goal. So, I mean, it was a good result in the end.
You're confident that the half-time changes in realigning your mid-court made a difference, or do you think it was just a matter of settling into your own game across the duration of the match?
I think it was a bit of both. We didn't have the movement in the first half, and we're really struggling to get it into our goal circle and across that transverse line. So we made the change hoping to get a bit more movement, but also our timing began to come back into the game as well. So it was a bit of both, a bit of changes and a bit of better work ethic throughout the team.
Thought it was the toughest full-court defence from two teams that we've seen throughout the series. There was nothing given in that entire match.
Well, it was one of the toughest games that I've played in for a long time. In that last quarter, obviously there was just nothing in it, and you're just trying to dig and try to just keep going, because you knew that every little bit that you did was going to count out there on court. I mean, there was some great work by both teams in the end in the pressure situation, so, I mean, it was a great game.
I hope it hasn't taken too much out of you for tomorrow night's final. Congratulations.
Thanks, Anne. I hope it hasn't either.
Into the final then goes Melbourne, and shortly they'll know whether it's Sydney Energy or Sydney Synovus that they'll play when they get there. This was the last week of our viewer competition, and we'd like to congratulate Jill Watson of Bibra Lake in Western Australia, just south of Perth, who rang in to say that the lines on a netball court are allowed to be 50 millimetres wide.
Australia's swimming selectors have opted for a blend of youth and experience, with the 34-strong Atlanta squad containing 13 Olympians from the Barcelona Games. The squad was announced just after Kieran Perkins qualified for the 1500 metres. Andrew McKinlay with the details.
Kieran Perkins attracted most media attention, but Karen Van Wertum created her own splash. The 25-year-old off to her third Olympics after smashing Lisa Curry-Kenny's Commonwealth record for 50 metres freestyle.
Sensational swim by Karen Van Wertum.
Lisa sort of said to me before I went out, look, you've been after my record for a long time, go for it.
Stephen Dewick proved he's the best man in Australia at swimming backwards. A win over 200 metres saw him finish first in all 3 backstroke events. Susie O'Neill lived up to her nickname Madam Butterfly, winning the 200 despite suffering a stomach virus.
Yeah, I felt a bit off colour for the last couple of days, so I'm just happy to have won that.
O'Neill and fellow butterflyer Scott Miller were named swimmers of the meet, but most celebrations took place in the stands when the Olympic team was announced. Each team member was congratulated by a lineup of former Olympic greats. For some first-timers, the occasion proved too much. But head coach Don Talbot can't guarantee everyone will get a swim in Atlanta.
If somebody gets sick, something happens, then I can't guarantee that. I don't, unless you're Jesus Christ.
Andrew McKinlay, National 9 News.
John Bowe has taken the lead after the 6th round of the Australian Touring Car Championships at Calder Park. A consistent day as was after they won the National League Grand Final. Energy Australia had gone through the series undefeated but failed to win the big one. Matt Dowling again.
The Pumas flew into Melbourne this morning brandishing their most valuable piece of luggage, the Prime Minister's Cup. It seems everyone wanted to take a turn at holding the silverware, which was just reward for last night's 59-39 win against Energy Australia.
I just couldn't believe that we got the start we wanted. Everything worked. Every tactic that we'd worked on, it just all came off. It was just our night.
Sydney-based Energy Australia went into the grand final as a raging favourite, but the Pumas took the initiative early, Joss Bryant and Ella Southby dominating in attack. 19-year-old Southby finished with 31 goals and a strike rate of almost 76%.
Oh, can she what?
The Pumas also had stars in defence. Janine Lynch and Liz Taverner sharing the honours for best grand final players. Lynch shut out Joan Morgan, restricting her to just 20 goals.
Well, this is Morgan's weakest performance so far this season.
The Pumas were understandably jubilant after the final siren, the result reversing last year's disappointing grand final loss.
Everyone just wanted it so much this year, and losing by 7 last year just made us, want that win.
Matt Dowling, National 9 News.
And we begin Sunday.
Tonight. We were a bit slow last night in the semi-final, so we're certainly hoping to get off a good, strong start, a little more confidence and not so much hesitancy in our play. But I think if we all pull together, if our timing's there and the confidence that we've had throughout the series, we're going to give ourselves a good showing.
The captains have their strategies planned for the 96 Mobile League final. It's Sydney Energy playing Melbourne in a replay of last year's title decider. Welcome to the Adelaide Powerhouse. I'm Steve Rebillard for ABC Sport. 8 goals was the margin when Sydney won the Prime Minister's Cup last year. 8 goals was the margin a month ago when Sydney beat Melbourne. And Sergeant, can Melbourne break this run tonight?
I'm not sure on that one, Steve. I think it's quite amazing that 8-goal deficit has been sustained because Melbourne have made a lot of ground in 12 months. I think what's fair to say is both teams, they're the informed teams of the competition. For Melbourne, you have an exciting young lineup, depth and versatility. For Sydney, a rock-solid, experienced combination. It's going to be a tremendous match. For my money, I'm tipping Sydney Energy for back-to-back titles.
Let's look at the teams now, and these are the 7 players who've steered Sydney through the competition undefeated. Jo Morgan and Nicole Cusack were outstanding in the big win over St Novus. They couldn't ask for a more experienced captain than Sue Kenny, who's been there, done that and won most of it. They have Australian centre Carissa Dalwood. Wing defence Dimi Kosifas hit her best form of the season in the semi, and we've just about run out of superlatives for the defensive work of Finnan and Devry. They'll be looking to send out retiring coach Carol Sykes with one last trophy. As hard as their 1-goal win over Contax was, Melbourne will certainly find one last big game. Ella Southby is in goals with Jocelyn Bryant, keeping Danny Arnott on the bench. A centre court quandary for Norma Plummer. She selected Michelle Bennison at wing attack and skipper Simone McInnes at wing defence, of course. Getting the start at centre is Ingrid Dick. 3 won't go into 2 back in the circle, and so Rosalie Jenke must wait her chance as Taverner and Lynch get first crack at Sydney this time. Well, good crowd in at the Adelaide Powerhouse for this final, although no Adelaide team has made it through. And Melbourne players still shooting a few warm-up goals. The Sydney players on the bench, and they're just about to be called onto the court.
And at the Powerhouse, there's 2 powerhouse teams going head-to-head. Melbourne Puma and Energy Australia, a team from Sydney. The team speaking with their coaches.
Sydney having finished top and undefeated. But Melbourne to be introduced first of all.
Jocelyn Bryant. At goal attack, Eloise Southby. At wing attack, Michelle Bennison. Centre, England Dick. At wing defence, Simone McInnes. At goal defence, Liz Taverner. At goalkeeper, Janine Lynch. And on the bench for Melbourne Puma tonight, Danny Arnott, Rosalie Jenke, Megan Fryder, Susan Howie, and Rochelle Patterson. Simone McInnes is the captain of the team. Norma Plummer is the coach. Pat Chappell is the manager. Darren Martin.
And Norma Plummer, not as nervous as she was for the semi-final, she says. A couple of Chardonnays for lunch help, she reckons. So I'm sure she's taking a very sober view of proceedings now. As Sydney get introduced, Jo Morgan.
Sue
And Carol Sykes, her last game as coach of this team. After 15 years of coaching, she's pulling the pin. And I'm sure Sydney playing on a little bit of emotion, wanting to send out their coach a winner. And Jan Cross, closer to camera, Nola Calnan, looking after this most important match. And it'll be Ingrid Dick, centre for Melbourne. Take the first centre pass. So underway in the Prime Minister's Cup for 1996. And Melbourne, what have they got left in the tank? You can always rise, I think, once more when it's an occasion like this, Anne.
I think something that's in their interest is the depth through the line, and the fact that they rested Ingrid Dick for the second half of their match against Contax. That was probably as much to try and create something, but it has had the effect of resting her. That gives her some fresh legs for this battle.
And of course she's running against Carissa Dalwood with the ball now. Cusack across to Kenny and Morgan. And Lynch marking her, and Taverner.
And is that an ominous sign for Sydney Energy? Morgan has started every match in superb form in goals and courageous in goals. That one nowhere near it. Few nerves.
Benison has it. Bryant anchors the right foot. Southby. Southby, just 19 years old, the youngest on-court player. Benison down to Bryant. Southby.
Lot rests on Southby. She wasn't in flash form in the semi-final, but she's open nicely now.
It's a 3-0 start to Melbourne. 1.5 minutes gone. Kenny. And touched away by Lynch. Another turnover. What a start for Melbourne. They can convert here. Bryant back out to Benison. Southby. Finnan defending from the side, and in she goes.
And not a confident shot, but enough on it. Steve, I thought in the semi-final, as Ingrid Dick just throws that one to the scoring bench, so unforced error there, that Bryant was the one that kept them in goals early on. Southby, I thought, became a little proppy on her moves, and they might have done well to free her up to goal attack a little earlier. They've tried it for this match, and it's opened nicely for them.
Morgan, second shot put up by her is
That's a
good.
better one.
Yeah, Sydney on the board now. Kenny got to settle this team after Melbourne quicker out of the blocks. It's usually Sydney has been making blinding starts. They blew Melbourne away in their opening quarter when they played in Brisbane. It was all but over at quarter time. Cusack pops in the second. When Melbourne went down to Sydney in Brisbane, Bryant, with the ball now, shot 85% in a losing side. Southby that day, 72%.
Good position there from Southby. Solid under the post, blocking out.
Kenny. Finnan. Dalwood. Cusack. And quick hands from Kenny. Feeds Morgan. Cusack to make it 3-5. And at the second attempt, yes, Carol Sykes on the right. Joe Kenny on the left, manager. Sister-in-law of Sue Kenny.
And that was a very solemn Carol Sykes. I think she'll show some emotion soon.
Bryant. And Norma Plummer beside her assistant coach Shane Burke. Sykes and Plummer both great players in their day. Norma perhaps a bit more prominent as a player, but Carol Sykes has accumulated some credentials over the years as a coach. 5 state league titles and 3 national crowns. various levels. Cusack back out to Dalwood and a loose ball.
As if it's not tough enough to tell Taverner from Lynch, they've both decided to put their hair in a tight bun tonight. They're almost the defensive twins.
Well, Taverner is goal defence and Lynch goalkeeper, if that helps you at home. But they are very similar looking. And Lynch is a centimetre or two taller. Benison.
Southby puts a screen on, opens it up for herself under the post. Great positioning from the young shooter. And she's finding better movement for the big match.
7-3, Melbourne still in the driver's seat after 5 minutes of play in the final. Devery gets a touch. And will this be Keely's last season? She's leaving her options open.
I think some of the Sydney players have decided to play as long as they enjoy it. And they've certainly, without the pressure of selection on them, enjoyed this season. Darwood running out of room. Taverner setting up the contact then. Taverner now trying to be called out by Jan Cross. That frees Cusack under the post.
Dalwood. Kenny. Cusack. Dalwood to Morgan. 6 minutes gone, 3 the lead for Melbourne. Just out of reach for Cusack. And defence pressure squeezes out another turnover. Taverner. McInnes. Long ball for Benison. Just gets the better of Kosifas, who's pushed back into the play by Captain Kenny.
This match should provide some good balances and checks for selectors too. Simone McInnes, always a good rule of thumb. Audine Cobb had a fine game on her in the semis from Contax. Sue Kenny is also a recent addition to the national squad, like Cobb, and this will be a good way to weigh the two up.
Ingrid Dick's centre pass. Benison now through Southby. Southby to Bryant, and 2 Sydney defenders there, but Bryant has it.
Well,
and
shoots
goals.
through Keely Devery. That's a confident start from Bryant. 4 from 5. Southby, 5 straight. So Eloise Southby has had a look at the stats overnight and decided there needs to be more from her. And her reply has been sound.
Wing area. Where you are.
Caught a glimpse a moment ago of Alexander Downer here as the Prime Minister's representative. Landed Foreign Affairs portfolio, didn't he?
Pass the shot.
Netball may be a foreign affair for him temporarily. We'll have him right by the end of the match. Might be doing him a disservice. He might be well credentialed and we don't know.
Well, he's sitting near enough to Jill McIntosh, national coach. I'm sure he could catch up on some finer points of the game if he bothered. 9-5.
Melbourne far steadier than their semi-final performance. In fact, this game very different to that match. It's far more composed, contained, controlled, all of the above.
Mr. Downer, and 2 to the right of Mr. Downer is Sue Taylor, national president.
Jo Morgan's been restricted to just the 3 attempts in the first half of this quarter. She hasn't been that quiet in the whole series. The work's being done ahead of her from Taverner and McInnes.
Bryant.
And the defending champs are under pressure. Southby doesn't have speed, and she's not a great mover up the front, but because she's a little slower, it creates a steadiness in their attack line that complements the speed quite nicely. And it does open up Bryant at the back.
Shot on for Southby now after the contact from Finnan.
Well, there's 5. 5 turnovers for Sydney, just the 2 for Melbourne. The penalty count, though, is against Sydney at the start of the match.
Well, this opening quarter, a mirror image of the first when they last met.
Great work again there by Taverner, denying access to Morgan.
Wing attack. Hold, wing defender.
So it's Melbourne by 7.
Reversing the fortune of that they enjoyed in the rounds.
Goal, keeper, shuttle pass.
This time they've got the start on Sydney.
Well, I'm sure Norma Plummer, the coach, would feel that no margin is enough against Sydney Energy. They'd really like to push on with this. Benison, Dick.
Advantage contact.
Bryant as Debris hits the floor.
Southby has been strong in the rebounds. There haven't been many, but she's been well positioned for them.
14-5.
Advantage break.
Melbourne must be pinching themselves, saying this is dream stuff. Dalwood.
Advantage obstruction.
Kenny. Morgan finally gets one.
And that's a settler.
They won't be panicking yet, but
Penalty.
already it's a lot to haul in with less than 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. Contact against Benison.
Just as Kenny was putting herself out of play, Benison replied at the other end of the court.
Goal line.
And the placement not there for Sydney Energy. They're really struggling in their forward line. The pressure is incredible from the Melbourne defensive trio, McInnes, Taverner and Lynch.
McInnes out to Lynch. Now Southby, Benison, Bryant. Southby once more. Benison top of the circle as Bryant gets away from Finnan. Shot on for Southby.
Well, I think Keely Debris thought the penalty was going the other way. Southby, 9 straight. What an opening for the youngster. She's vying for Australian honours this year. That's going to catch the eye of the selectors.
Morgan. Short. Cusack there.
Contact. Pass is dot.
Joe Morgan really feeling the pressure early on in the match. McInnes puts that one through. She's put up 5 straight. But Joe Morgan needs to come into her own if Sydney are to survive this.
Tall shooting combinations.
Finnan read it well. But again, a few balls out of Nikki Cusack's hands, and Carol Sykes screaming at her charges from the bench. Cusack's put a few across court with far too much on it. Placement lacking from her.
Contact.
Contact against Dalwood. Getting a little willing out there. As Bryant and Southby presented slightly taller combined shooting combination than Morgan and Cusack of 184 and 186. Morgan's the tallest on court, but Cusack just 178.
And again, the turnover to Melbourne. And where this game started fairly quietly, the intensity now creeping in as you see the strain on Sydney, the defending champs, and Melbourne settling into their task.
Bryant, 15-7, the lead for Melbourne. 2:30 left in the first quarter. Obstruction call against Dimi Kosofis.
Obstruction, goalkeeper, shuttle pass.
This for her 10th straight.
Obstruction, both players out.
And it'll be like shooting practice with both Sydney defenders out.
Kenny. Finnan. 2 minutes for Sydney to do something about a 9-goal deficit.
Quick hands then from Cusack. Hesitates on the shot. Too much on it. And too quick to reply on the rebound from the Melbourne defence combination.
McInnes.
Well, Debris went hunting for that one. She was wise to let it go. They've drawn the throw in.
So Finnan, it's a long one go to Kosofis. Cusack.
Well, the question is, Steve, if Sydney want to alter the lineup, it's pretty untested the waters when they look to the bench. We've seen a sprinkling of them throughout the series, but we know this is the preferred 7 with little variation. Melbourne, by contrast, have a lot to play with. Southby just waiting, not forcing the issue, just runs into a brick wall and holds it up. Bryant, though, pops up the unforced error, a handling error.
Finnan, Cusack, a minute left in the first quarter.
Well, the flow's nice down court, but as soon as it hits the attacking transverse line across Kenny and Cusack, it's coming undone. They're just losing that connection into the circle. Again, Lynch. Too quick around Morgan.
Well, Lynch It's had this long period out in this series with the scaphoid injury and operation, but boy, her form in this opening quarter suggests she's well and truly back.
Well, Morgan was caught standing then, and you can't afford to do that. Both Lynch and Taverner with good speed onto the ball, so they're going to need to open the movement. They need Morgan thinking out there.
For a 10-goal lead.
That's a good jump from Debris, and the rebound to follow. She's trying to rev her side up.
Cusack.
Barney's offside.
Dalwood to Morgan. As the timekeeper gets up.
Well, this is Morgan's weakest performance so far this season. It's an opening quarter she'll want to wipe from her mind and get on with the game.
Well, Melbourne can head to the bench very happy with what's been achieved out there in the first 15 minutes. A surprise scoreline, 16-7. Melbourne leads Sydney Energy at quarter time. That was surprising and alarming. Surprising and alarming first quarter for Sydney Energy. Trailing by 9. Benison. Dick Benison. Ten the lead. So, well, 20 shots put up by Melbourne in the first quarter to Sydney Energy's 12, Anne.
Yes, Joe Morgan with just 2 from 6. She's put out demoralising form in the match that counts. She'll be looking to remedy that 33%. Nicole Cusack in good form with 83%. Bryant sound 2, 6 from 8. But it's Southby I thought was most impressive on court in the first quarter. 10 from 12, 83%.
So Southby. Bryant. Benison. Good scrap on the deck between Finnan and Bryant. Devry, Kossifus, Dalwood. Kenny to Dalwood. Cusack breaks away from the circle, leaves Morgan back there with Lynch, who touches it for Taverner.
Well, hasn't Lynch made a difference? They held her out of the first half of their semi, and I was a little surprised at that. She did come into the game and she did well, but to start with her, it's brilliant for Melbourne. Bryant. And Finnan. And equally good work from Finnan, but again, the placement of the ball letting Sydney down.
Well, they work so hard to get the turnovers, and then if their disposal is poor, they may as well not have bothered in the first place. That's what happened there, and now it's a 10-goal lead. Cusack.
Congestion at the top of the Sydney circle. Kenny and Cusack almost mirroring each other's moves.
Play. Contact penalty.
Cusack. Sydney Energy averaging 61 goals per match, and they haven't hit double figures. We're in the second quarter. Tells you how they're struggling. Dalwood.
Offside.
Ingrid Dick.
Contact, goal attack.
Contact against Southby on Devry.
Southby shakes her head, but that's what Devry's been looking for. I think she thought there was some body on some earlier moves in the first quarter.
Dalwood. Cusack on the baseline. Kenny.
Contact, goal attack.
Lynch wins out.
Instruction, both out.
Cusack was trying to get back on court.
Contact.
Interesting to watch that again. We may not get the chance, but Lynch had her arms raised then, and Cusack, I think, felt she had every right to run through outstretched arms.
Play.
Sydney have it back, but they're trailing by 9. Early stages of the second quarter.
Throw in.
And that was off the legs of Carissa Dalwood.
Taverner, Benison, sorry Dick, now McInnes and Benison.
Far more freedom for Melbourne as they mount their play down court.
Southby was very slow to get up after losing a footing.
Rather dramatic call there from Eloise Southby, screaming at the team to back it up. That's not what they need, temperamental play when they've got such a solid lead.
Quicker hands from Melbourne. Under the post. And Bryant. Benison just dribbles it in. And Devry out of the hands of Southby and the view of Jan Cross. Kenny. One against Taverner. Morgan.
Well, none of the stand and deliver shots working for Morgan in this game. From the opening goal, she looked like she was in bother, so it's been a big test for her. This is the one that counts, and she's choking in the early stages.
Benison looks for Dick and Southby. Taverner. Bryant and Benison.
It's good movement outside the Melbourne circle from Benison and Ingrid Dick. They work it around now so that the shooters can open up.
Wing area.
Southby's offering very little in movement. It's a little static, and she looks like she's concerned, but they're in such a comfortable position. She should just relax and play it on. Again, in back play, she shakes her head.
It's Kenny. They've got to get on with the job and score some goals, Sydney. They're trailing by 10. Hot favourites, well, warm at least. One drops for Morgan at last.
And here's Sydney's charge. Susie Kenny trying to rev up her side. She's involved in the play. The roll from Morgan comes to the base. She settles. It's not a confident one, but it's just enough.
Contact
against Kossovas.
Where you are.
8:45 left in the second quarter. Southby. Oh, good work around the corner to Ingrid Dick. Southby once more.
Well, it's a great start for Melbourne, but Sydney can still win this game. They just need to chisel away at the lead and maintain composure. There's Southby under the post, finishing off that shot.
Very solid structure.
20-11 for Melbourne.
Behind contact, knees, wing.
Benison. Southby to Bryant.
That's a tidy offload from Southby. Their combination's working nicely.
Dalwood. Cusack. And Morgan wants this. Halfway through the second quarter, exactly. And Melbourne don't need to do anything different to what they've done through the match so far.
I was just about to say, if they don't win this final, they lost it themselves and they handed it over on a platter, because they're in absolute control in this game. Devry again tries to rejig a team. You can see the aggression on the rebound. They're trying to lift themselves, but it's not coming together for them.
Well, they've still got more than half the game to do it. Cusack.
And you just see there in all departments, they're underdone. They've had such a fine season.
Well, the brilliant opening from Melbourne has everybody a bit edgy in the Sydney team, and I think Morgan and Cusack look a little nervous as they shoot. Southby. Ingrid Dick back to Benison.
Contact. Distraction. Where you are.
A shot on for Bryant for a 10-goal lead again. Not
Again,
to be.
Southby doing well in the rebounding.
And Pam Smith, bottom right there, National Executive Director of Netball at Rosemary Crowley. Morgan.
Obstruction.
Well, Lynch closing in space on Cusack, and she just frees up the arm then. Must stand well beside, not crowd the shooter when you're out of play and a penalty.
Contact, wing attack.
Kenny came off second best after the bump with McInnes. A slightly sore knee at the moment.
Offside.
I think she'll work
She might
through
have
that.
actually corked her calf. She's got the
Where you
calf
are.
on stretch in back play.
Southby.
Well, that was a confident shot. She doesn't have to do much in the circle. It's still proppy and one stride work, but it's enough.
Jill McIntosh, national coach there. Good shot.
Morgan's put Cusack under pressure on the last few passes to the baseline. She wasn't able to answer that one.
Benison, 5 minutes left in the second quarter.
Contact, goal defence.
And this for an 11-goal lead.
Melbourne. Burnley's free.
Benison straight to Bryant. Devery stays back in the circle. And got a touch.
And Steve, no one's left the Sydney bench, which leads you to think that Carol Sykes expects her experienced campaigners to dig deep and pull themselves out of the situation. As Finnan throws that one back in disgust. They know they're in bother.
Kenny.
Three-second call, and I think that shows the pressure they're under.
First held call of the match. And as expected against Sydney, the way it's going, Benison. Oh, it must have been just out of the range of Finnan. She shot an arm out for it, but it's Sydney ball. She couldn't have got a touch. Oh, through Dalwood to Ingrid Dick. Another turnover. Melbourne accepting most of these chances that are being offered them. Not this one, though.
Play. Play.
3:20 left in the second.
Obstruction, goal attack.
Dalwood to Kenny. Cusack.
Great ball from Kenny to Cusack. And again, the peripheral vision exploited by Sydney Energy captain.
Contact. Wait for
Well, the work around the circle that time was more like the Sydney of old.
Yeah, that was smart play, and Cusack now giving herself time. She knows the shot's important. Still time for them to chisel at that lead. They need to believe it themselves. I think they still look bewildered out there.
Well, I'm sure Norma Plummer and the whole Melbourne team will know that Sydney's only got to play at their absolute best for one quarter, and most of that lead will disappear.
That was a brilliant ball from Bryant to Southby, anchored at the post.
Melbourne still building the lead. It was 9 at quarter time. It's 12 now.
Morgan was unguarded at the post, but so much pressure over Cusack, she couldn't get the ball away. It's drawn the penalty. She was looking to offload to the post, though. Has to dig deep for a long-range penalty shot. It's a beauty, though. Cusack doing little wrong in goals. 5 from 6. Morgan so quiet in this match. She's put up 3 from 5 in this quarter. Southby, though, still storming home. She's 7 from 9.
Carol Sykes, plenty to worry about as half-time approaches. It's a minute 50 away. She's unlikely to make any changes. Still nobody up off the bench. As Morgan from long
That's
range.
a better one. And Carol Sykes hangs the head. At last she sees a thread of what she's used to.
Benison. Bryant. Back to McInnes. Well, Devry's out of the circle, and that opened it up for Bryant. Devry backed herself and lost.
Hitting the hand.
Plenty of heart, though. Devry's trying to create the turnovers, and you can only do it by running at the ball, not sitting back.
Contact wing.
Dalwood wanting one of her goalers to offer a lead.
Well, Morgan's gone very proppy again. I'm sure they'd like to see the movement maintained by her. And she pushed off Lynch then. It's a throw-in anyway.
Hold time, please.
Heads are down through the Sydney line. You can look down court, and some of our more seasoned netballers looking in pieces. Plenty of time, as we've said, across the second half to drag it back.
Southby, there's confidence for you. 13 the lead now. And have they got time to make it a 14-goal lead at halftime? The match would be just about within their grasp at halftime. Southby.
Again, placement to Southby under the post, working time and time again for Melbourne through Finnan and Devry. That's not been done before in the series.
Timekeeper gets up now. Cusack will have seen her as she fed that to Dalwood. Morgan puts up a quick one. Oh, great goal. And it was there just in time. Well, a brilliant finish by Sydney Energy, but they'll need so much more of it in the second half. They're in deep trouble as Melbourne lead it 30-17. Well, they are defending champion Sydney Energy, but they face their biggest task of the season, coming back from a 13-goal deficit. Melbourne are travelling so well, playing out of their skins after what we thought might be a semi-final that would have taken too much out of them. But Sydney Energy don't look like they're going to make any changes, but there's plenty of discussion going on then about how they can change the outcome of this match. But the first half stats make pretty ugly reading for the champions. Penalties against, well, they're being hurt 34-21. They're giving up more turnovers, 25-17. Melbourne are enjoying much more possession, putting up 39 attempts to 25, and that's reflected in the score, 30-17. And their shooting percentage also 8% to the good of Sydney Energy. So in every department you'd expect, with a 13-goal lead, Melbourne are leading Sydney.
That's the case. It's too many areas to look to all at once. I think it comes down to Sydney believing in their own ability, settling down, discarding the first half of the match and just starting to put the basics together well. Melbourne know they have a solid lead, but they'll play to protect it. Sydney need to come on with some really aggressive netball. Finnan and Devry have been trying to turn things around, but it's still falling down in their attack line.
Well, we've talked a lot about what's going wrong for Sydney, but perhaps without giving enough credit to Melbourne, they have played steady, at times spectacular netball, and they've just been too good.
Southby has pulled out a wonderful performance for this final.
The players are out before the umpires. The umpires won't recommence until the 5 minutes is up. Jan Cross has the match ball. Ingrid Dick and Carissa Dell are just asking whose centre pass it is. It's Melbourne's. So Melbourne on the move again at the start of the third.
Offside, free pass inside. Offside.
Now, it's an offside call against Sydney, so Melbourne possession on court. Bryant. Dalwood to Kenny, McInnes after it, Morgan, and they need more from Joe Morgan somehow.
Well, Lynch has just been in diabolical form. I think the big difference for Melbourne is that back line. Taverner, Lynch, McInnes really saving their best for the match. Southby has come through really well under the pressure of the final. And you wouldn't know they played such a torrid game against Contax. If anything, they looked the fresher of the two and the keener of the two. That one against Morgan, that's not what Sydney need.
Contact goal.
Well, she was in position, Jo Morgan, early. The ball was late coming to her. She got frustrated as it finally arrived. She's there. She is screaming for it.
1 out.
And yes, tries to come over the top of Lynch and slams down on her.
Didn't look too good, but Janine is okay.
Janine looking like she's made of rubber then, wasn't she?
Put the jelly legs on. She's all right.
Well, frustration there for Joanne Morgan.
I think Lynch and Taverner wouldn't have too much trouble passing the skin fold test. Very little extra of them.
Well, they've really mounted their campaigns for selection with this performance. It's important to look at how players perform under the pressure of the big ones. This is one of those games.
Where you are. Play.
Oh, Sydney need to treasure this turnover to make something of it. Haven't scored in the third quarter yet. Mind you, Melbourne have only added one. It's been a slightly scrappy start. Morgan.
Morgan starting to find her shooting rhythm as the game is developing. Don't know whether she'll have time to string it all together. But starting to come for her in goals.
Southby.
Instruction, shuttle pass.
Finnan too close, says Nola Calnan. Devry's rebound. Well, Bryant went up just a touch early as the ball hung on the rim.
Better work there from Sydney. That one was more like their old selves. Morgan throws herself off the back of the court.
Hitting the player.
Cusack. Oh, another soft shot.
Contact. Goal defense.
Morgan pops in number 19 for Sydney.
Devry with the rebound, quickly onto Dawood. This is better timing from Sydney. The drive is there from Dawood and Finnan. It swung across court, and quick hands from Kenny onto Cusack.
Meanwhile, Morgan has missed one, and Melbourne have had the rebound. McInnes, Benison. Jocelyn Bryant. And some of the Melbourne bench there, Danny Arnott on the left, Megan Flyner and Susie Howie. Can't expect to get a run with a team playing this well.
Contact goal defender.
Melbourne really waiting until the very last in the series to find Bryant as one of their starting 7, but that's paid dividends. We've talked about the options. They stayed with Danny, their other shooter, Danny Arnott, sorry, and they really swung it just for the playoff series. There was a hint of it in Melbourne in the last round, but it's paid dividends for them. And then able to switch Southby and Bryant for this one has really put the icing on the cake.
And I wonder, Anne, if one of the things that swayed Norma Plummer about picking Bryant was her great form against Sydney when they did lose. When she shot 85%.
Well, she came into the game, didn't she, for Melbourne when it all turned around, because they made such an amazing comeback in that third quarter. And she looks like she has no nerves.
Contact against Sydney as Lynch picks herself up once more. McInnes, the skipper, has it. And she'd be proud of this team if they can win it.
Wing attack.
Victorian netball has really announced itself in the last 12 months with a win in the national titles.
Oh, they'll be unstoppable, unbearable, unstoppable. One of those. They really enjoyed winning nationals and they deserved the title. They had a very consistent championship runners-up in this event last year. And, of course, another wonderful series so far, and looking like they might get their hands on the Prime Minister's Cup.
Contact.
Sydney with the work ahead of them.
Cusack shoots over Taverner and does it.
That's her first for the quarter.
Well, 5 minutes gone in the third, and the lead is still 13 as it was at half-time. It's not enough to keep pace with Melbourne when you're trailing by that margin. Southby. Devry first to it. Dalwood. Finnan open. Cusack. And Sydney just starting to find a few spaces. A bit more timing. Wonder if Carol Sykes senses that.
Darwood holds it up, Finds the drive from Finnan, who's injected new life into the full-court drives. They find Morgan well.
And Cusack adds another. And the lead is trimmed to 11. Still a long way back. And Melbourne have possession through Ingrid Dick. Benison.
Ingrid Dick and Michelle Benison have really been able to do as they wish through this match. Nothing stopping their drive to the circle. They've been quite creative and mobile outside the circle.
Kenny. Morgan. Across to Dalwood. All these must go in for Sydney if they're to make a game of it in the last quarter. We think they'd need 2 or 3 turnovers before the next break. Bryant.
Steady play there from Melbourne. They're not about to crack.
Contact, wing defence.
Good tussle there between McInnes and Kenny. There's been shoulder charges all over the ship.
The turnover goes the other way. Melbourne steady. Taverner. Ingrid Dick cross court to McInnes. Benison to Bryant. Touch from Finnan.
Sideline.
Penalty count, Steve, has been fairly even throughout the middle part of the game. The first quarter, though, that 19 against Sydney and just 9 against Melbourne was really damaging for them. That at a time when they couldn't find their shooters.
Bryant just seemed to float around the circle then. He's a great mover, and the 13-goal lead is restored.
Oh, good steal from Dalwood. Kenny just checking the circle to see if she could drive right to the top.
Morgan put about 5 dodges on, and Kenny read the right one to give to. Dal waits for a slow ball to reach her. Cusack. 7 minutes left in the third.
Contact. Pass the shot.
That's
Lynch.
more exciting play from Sydney.
Taverner, Ingrid Dick. They're starting to wonder, I suppose, Melbourne, if they can do it. They, in the first quarter and a half, they must have thought, well, this is a great start. Now they'll be thinking, well, the end of the game's not that far away. Can we hold on?
Well, they would have spent the first quarter pinching themselves. Sydney needs to place the doubt in Melbourne's mind that perhaps the floodgates are about to open. They've got a bit of convincing to do, though. Again, nothing from the circle. Morgan on the hold. And the feed from too far off. Too much pressure.
Play.
Taverner has it. Melbourne a slightly younger side at 25 average age. Sydney 28.
Contact wing, centre, penalty.
Contact against Dalwood as she ran past Benison. Just under 6 minutes to go in the third, and 12 is Melbourne's lead. Well, that was risky. There looked to be 2 defenders in the way. Southby, not quite sure why she did that, but it worked out.
Benison holds it. Goes across court. They try to find the shooters. Southby, a confident offload across Devery.
It's Southby again.
And Southby has stumbled a little in her shots in this quarter, but Bryant, though, 6 straight, no misses.
Five minutes left in the third. 14 the lead again.
Too much pressure there for that slow, high lob. They get away with it, though. Cusack winds it up. Dalwood has a look, puts it up. It's slow, but Morgan with just enough to haul it in.
It's been a held ball against Melbourne. And once more, it's so important for Sydney to do something with these turnovers. There aren't that many of them. Oh.
And look at the work from Melbourne. Every ball contested, every pass hands over.
Jan Cross agreeing with the protest from Joe Morgan that there was contact.
Back to 12.
Carnage, break all the
Sydney's bench still thinks they can do it. They need to convince the 7 on court.
Cusack.
Contact. Penalty pass.
Almost a steal from Ingrid Dick outside the circle, but it was contact on the pass.
Obstruction.
Obstruction
Half
against
shot.
Taverner. Cusack was hoping for it, got it, and should get this.
Melbourne.
Farrell Sykes looks at the scoreboard. No point her leaving anything left unspent in what's the last game at this level. Can't imagine that she'll give away coaching altogether.
No, well, certainly this is not one she'd want to finish on if it goes as it has been going so far this match. She won't be comfortable walking away from this performance. They have so much more in them.
It's Pat Chappell on the left, Shane Burke, assistant coach, and Norma Plummer, the Melbourne bench, has got up.
And Morgan, with not enough speed to get around Lynch. Young keeper had the move covered. A lot of movement from the Melbourne bench. None from Sydney.
Yeah, 4 out of the 5 are up for Melbourne. Jenke, Fleiner, Arnott and Howie.
Well, that's a confident move, and it perhaps means that Norma Plummer might like to reward her team, who have shown so much versatility throughout the series, by giving them a taste of the final.
Great save on the sideline from Ingrid Dick. There's Rosalie Jenke.
Contact goal defense.
Rosa Jenke played every match that I can think of, or at least part of it.
Well, she's laid the foundation in many respects for this performance. Stepped in when Lynch was injured. Of course, she's a former Australian player. She's had a wonderful return to elite netball. There she is again on camera, contemplating stepping out for a quarter.
Well, I'll give nothing away if they put her on there. She'd have to consider herself a touch unlucky, but she's playing in a side with 2 great defenders in Lynch and Taverner, as Morgan shoots over Lynch. Cusack, a rare opportunity for her after a missed shot. Taverner and Lynch seem to have been taking everything. 1:50 left in the third. Still it's 13. Sydney haven't done enough in this third quarter
You're causing penalty.
to give themselves much of a chance in the last.
Contact shooter.
Kossifis, Dalwood. Melbourne would have to absolutely crumble to lose it.
It's hard to imagine Sydney getting away with this one. If they do, it'll go down in the record books. That's a fine shot there from Morgan. They need a ton more.
Well, if they can get the lead even back to 10, they'd feel they had a chance. Contact against Southby.
Penalty pass.
So they have possession. Their next goal would give them an 11-goal deficit. Morgan.
Oh, the pressure from Janine Lynch is just outstanding. She's put herself on the map.
Inside the last minute. Sorry, Anne.
I was just going to say there's a few Australian defenders who'll be feeling a little nervous watching this match.
Play.
Lynch brings it in. Taverner. They can be steady here. Melbourne. I'm sure they'd be pretty pleased with a 12-goal lead if that's the way it stays.
Play.
Ingrid Dick, Benison. That's something from Magolas. Bryant. Dick to Southby. Timekeeper's up. And Southby will have the last shot of the match. The quarter, I should say.
It just feels like that to Sydney.
It must do, yeah. Indeed, it was the last of the third. And the 13-goal lead that they had at half-time is what they enjoy at three-quarter time. Melbourne almost have it, 43-30. Sydney with so much to do, Melbourne confident. And it's a comeback required, the like of which I don't think any of us have seen, at least in a final. Melbourne runners-up last year, and few would want to deny them, except for those sympathetic to the emotion with which Sydney are playing. Carol Sykes, last match as coach. Keely Devry may or may not play next year, but it's Melbourne doing the job. It was a pretty even third quarter, though, Anne.
Yeah, Sydney able to run pretty well goal for goal with Melbourne. You can look at the number of attempts, 18 to 19, so fairly balanced there. And in accuracy, Sydney doing little wrong, 8 from 11 from Morgan at 72%, Cusack 5 from 7. Melbourne great through Bryant in the third quarter. Southby a little bit more relaxed in the shooting, but certainly doing the work out on the court. More a feeding role from her in that third quarter. Great intercept from Devry. She's trying to turn it around.
Cusack.
Morgan with a quadruple dodge at the baseline, pushes her right out to the edge of the circle, but not the goal.
Taverner has the rebound.
And Steve, look across at the Sydney bench. It's almost resignation to the outcome.
16-7 first quarter. Laid the platform for Melbourne, and they take it home in the last 15. A minute gone, no addition to the score.
Play.
Finnan. Kosofis. He's had a real battle with Benison.
Contact wing.
Whereas Kosofis had an outstanding match against Wag, I think it's been a different story against Michelle Benison, but that's been the case right across the court.
I don't think we can pin it anywhere. Darwood's been quiet. Susie Kenny uncharacteristically down on the form she's displayed earlier. Cusack and Kenny almost in each other's shadow. Morgan lacking the mobility. They've just been under what they can produce, and it's a tragedy when we know there's so much more to come from them.
They've scored the first 2 of the last quarter, Sydney, and they make something of it yet. Bryant.
Southby again, close to the post. Finnan left her to go and hunt a little higher with Devry. Southby stayed glued.
Dalwood to Kenny. Morgan.
Contact, goal defender, shot or pass, there.
Well, there was a contact against Taverner before Morgan and Lynch came together. Just as well for Morgan, I think.
Over the face.
That's an intimidation call against Lynch, which will give the Cusack a second take on the penalty.
It drew applause also from Sue Kenny. Maybe Sue feels that it's been happening a little bit.
Perhaps, but I think Sydney really can only look to themselves. You start to look for individual calls, but they'll know in their hearts that they've put out their worst performance in the series in the match they wanted most. It's not from want of trying. You can see that they're throwing everything into it. It just hasn't come for them.
Bryant. Well, we wondered whether Melbourne would be flat after their nail-biting one-goal win over Contax. They've been anything but.
I want to know what they did today to get a second lease of life like this.
Turnover, which Sydney could ill afford. Taverner, Benison. Dick to McInnes.
It's interesting, Steve, that the entire bench warmed up, but for no avail. I wonder if it was put to the on-court players, particularly to McInnes, whether they should introduce him to the game, and maybe the on-court players felt they deserved to play it out.
Well, I'm sure the bench players will be as happy about it as the on-court 7, because they've all had a go, I think, with the exception of Rochelle Patterson. I don't think we've seen Rochelle play across the series, but and Susie Howie, who's come back from injury. But Arnott, Jenke and Fleiner have all played an important part in Melbourne's progression to the final. It's Jenke on the left of those three with Fleiner and Howie.
Very complete performance from Melbourne. They've got it all. Speed, agility, elevation, and the timing really worked for them in this match. From the opening whistle, Melbourne wanted this game.
And their most talked about asset, their depth, wasn't perhaps needed in the final, but it helped get them there.
I think so. You've really got to look to that and acknowledge that throughout the series they've used all players in their squad well.
Where you are?
10 minutes to go. And Melbourne still lead it by 12. Thank you, Ed.
Melbourne.
Just seeing if you knew.
Took me a while to realise too.
Play.
Benison. Southby.
And Finnan just shakes the head. Walks away from that one. 15 the difference. Melbourne certainly not relaxing in the final quarter. In fact, they're calling each other to lift. They want to make this a memorable win.
Well, they're going to do that. They're going to probably hit 50 before Sydney hit 35.
Goal defence. Pass the shot.
And instead of Sydney taking some goals out of the lead, it's going the other way. Melbourne want to finish this in style. Kenny.
Hold time, please.
And Sue Kenny's called time. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's for Cusack, actually. Cole Cusack goes over to Leanne McKilser, the Sydney physio. Just got a twinge in the neck, it would seem. What's your diagnosis, Anne?
Yeah, it looks like it's obviously pain down the right-hand side. Could be a torn muscle through the shoulder. It's hard to tell, but certainly when her neck is put on stretch like that, she's indicating she's got pain down that right-hand side.
Well, we'll have a look. I don't think this will show us too much, but we'll see. Oh, well, she got cleaned up by a captain.
There.
Yeah. That pretty much shows she got a wrench. Wants to play on.
She'll probably notice that as she lifts her head to shoot a few more goals. Tries to put the speed on to beat Tavern on the base. Melbourne seem to have all the answers in defence tonight. Noel McCallum not allowing Sydney to cheat a few centimetres in the close of this game.
Benison. Ingrid Dick out to Southby.
And Melbourne may well open a new record margin for a win in the final. Can't remember former performances getting up here.
Play.
McInnes. Benison. Ingrid Dick looking for Benison. Across the circle. Bryant. Well, I was going to make the point at the start of this quarter that at least Sydney Energy was scoring more goals across the match. 7 in the first quarter, then 10, then 13. And they were reducing Melbourne, 16, 14 and 13, but hasn't meant anything. We're halfway through the last quarter and the lead is out to 16.
No, they've fallen to pieces in this final quarter. In fact, Carol Sykes just then applauding Melbourne. They can do little but sit and watch the new National League champions finish off their work.
Bryant, and this is a team playing with confidence.
Punishing form, 6 from 7 for Jocelyn Bryant to run down the final quarter. Southby 2 from 4. Bryant has taken responsibility in the second half. It was Southby in the first half that really took it to them in goals, and every pass hurting Sydney now.
Southby finishes off. Well, really pleased that this crowd has got into this match. Contax they saw go down in the playoff, the third, 59-43 to Sydney St Ovus earlier in the evening. So the other Sydney team finishing third. But this Adelaide crowd very much enjoying the form of Melbourne and probably took them to heart. We're going to back them as the underdogs.
I think you couldn't help but have been won over by Melbourne in the match. They put out brilliant netball. And from both sides, it's been a clean, open contest. Good use of space. Melbourne have well and truly made their own fortune, and you have to applaud them. It's a superb performance.
10-4. Melbourne lead this last quarter.
Nice feeling for Norma Plummer sitting watching this match. She saw a brilliant start, and then they've developed the lead steadily. Quite a comfortable way to watch your team win a National League title.
5 goals in nearly 10 minutes from Sydney.
Morgan just checking to see she's inside the circle. She wants to take a long-range shot.
Contact shooter.
And she arrived a bit late. Janine Lynch takes a few knocks, but she always gets up.
There's not much of her. There's length
tough.
and reach, but there's not too much.
Contact, wing attack.
Benison. Ingrid Dick, Southby. Not a bad player on this Melbourne line today. Very complete performance. Well, Lynch and Taverner have been outstanding, and we've just been told, Anne, that they will share the Player of the Final award, pick up $500 each.
Well, we were finding it hard to separate the performance. They really worked as a combination. I think there's probably a few more in the line that were in close contest of the money.
McInnes. Ingrid Dick looks for Eloise Southby this time. 4:30 left in the match. This for a 20-goal lead. Unbelievable scoreline. Southby once more. Applauds the work of her teammates. And before the match, people were running little pools about who might win and by how much. If you'd put Melbourne by 20, you'd have been on your own, I'm sure.
Contact. Goal attack out. Beside.
Kenny to Finnan, Dalwood.
Contact, penalty. Take hand off. Play on.
I don't think Ingrid could take it off. It was stuck there. Nola Callan asking her to release the ball.
Frustration on the faces of Sydney. I think they're feeling every call and every error, every turnover.
The semi-final was such a different match. They overwhelmed Sydney St Overs. Where's that form gone? I don't know. They'll ask themselves that question, I'm sure, many times in the next few days.
Both the Sydney teams haven't been able to carry 2 good games to Adelaide. St Overs had a shocker in their semi-final match against Sydney Energy, and of course came out the next day to do very well against Contax, overwhelming them. Today it's Sydney Energy's turn to collapse.
Benison looks for Bryant, has her. Southby. And Southby and Bryant have out-rebounded, I think, Finnan and Devry. Maybe that's the first time in the series that's happened. Finnan and Devry have been terrific in every other match. Well, we can only speculate about what might have put Sydney off their usual great form. They just expected to win.
You wonder, going into a match when you place a lot of importance on it, trying to get back-to-back titles and do it for your coach, if you don't perhaps put too much pressure on your shoulders. We can only suppose.
Melbourne 2 minutes away from winning the Prime Minister's Cup for 1996. 56-37, they lead Sydney Energy. Southby looking to make it 20. Oh, can she what? There might have been a few doubts about whether at 19 Southby had it for a final. She certainly has.
Contact keeper.
Contact against Lynch.
Hold goal defender. Shuttle pass. Yes, there.
Cusack. Prior to this match, Sydney's lowest score had been 52. And here they are stuck on 38 with just a minute and a bit to go. tells you something about the performance of Lynch, Taverner and McInnes, the back three for Melbourne, which most clubs would be very happy to have. Southby. Kossifis drills it down to Morgan, and McInnes closes in on it. And it was off Sydney, so it's Melbourne ball. And the Melbourne chant goes up as we're into the last 30 seconds of the match. Ingrid Dick, there are smiles on the faces of some of these Melbourne players as they finish off the match. The bench will empty in a moment. Southby. It's a popular win, this one, for Melbourne, as they boot the lead out to 21.
Advantage obstruction.
Benison.
Advantage contact.
Timekeeper gets out of a chair. Finnan, Kenny, Sydney looking for one last goal. Morgan out of the corner of her eye saw it coming, and she popped it in time, but it's still an impressive scoreline for Melbourne. What a win. They didn't just scrape in over the champions, they walloped them. 59-39. Sydney can only stand and applaud. An amazing performance by Melbourne. Much too good. Deserving winners of the 96 Prime Minister's Cup in the Mobile League, and Carol Sykes congratulates Norma Plummer. A sad way for Carol Sykes to end her coaching career. But the overriding impression everyone will take away from this match is how well this team has played. From front to back, Bryant, Southby, Benison, Dick, McInnes, Taverner and Lynch, just brilliant. Player of the series, by the way, Audine Cobb, the wing attack and centre for Contax. Perhaps a centre court player for Australia in the future. And as we mentioned, players of the final, Lynch and Taverner. And Audine Cobb, as announced earlier, picks up $1,500 as player of the series. That award judged in the matches prior to the semis and final. Well, Norma Plummer wanted this pretty badly. Must have been extreme relief as the final whistle was blown. Out of the chair she comes and hugs Pat Chappell, the manager. And with her assistant coach, Shane Burke. Well, Anne Sargent is with a disappointed Sydney skipper, Sue Kenny.
Thanks, Steve. Well, Susie, I know it's not the interview you wanted to do. A very disappointed Sydney captain. Not the match you wanted. Probably your worst performance for the match that was most important.
Yeah, I think it was, and it wasn't. We didn't get off to a very good start, and we didn't do much from then on. I think probably, yes, you are right. We probably started too early in the season. We going through undefeated. Not that we went into the game too easy, because we know Melbourne's a very hard competitor, but it wasn't our night tonight.
How did you feel going into the game? Was it nerves that it wouldn't come when you wanted it to, or confidence that you could keep it going?
No, we were nervous. It's just that, you know, it's very, you know, they're a very good side. You know, it wasn't that we were overconfident. It was just that they played better on the night.
Not the farewell you wanted for Carol Sykes either. That's the emotional side of it. You really wanted to send her off with back-to-back titles. That must hurt very much.
Yeah, it does. We would have loved to have done it for Carol, but, I mean, you can't do everything that you want to in life. But, you know, we had a really good series, and, you know, we're already sad that Carol's not going to coach.
I know it's a tough one for you. You've got to remember, though, what a champion side. It's been younger players coming through in the match. You've got to give credits to Melbourne. It was a fine game from them.
Yes, it was. We beat them in the rounds by a lot. I think the timing of our game was out, and hopefully, you know, we'll come back better next year.
Well, of course, there's some selection honours there too for some in the squad. You've got your own chance as the national squad. We wish you all the best with that. Try and put them on past. Just congratulate you on some fine performances across the season.
Yeah, thanks, Anne.
Susie Kenny there, full of emotion. A really tough interview to do when you didn't have the performance you wanted. We've got Simone McInnes coming to us shortly. She's trying to get out of Team celebration. Simone, I'm sorry to pull you out of that. Congratulations, National League champions. I know the feeling's tremendous.
Oh, it is. It's been a lot of hard work, you know, getting to this point, and I'm just really pleased with the way that everybody went tonight. Everything, our timing, everything about the way we played was perfect tonight.
Well, let's have a look at the start. In your wildest dreams, did you think you'd get away in the start? Did you feel like pinching yourself in that first quarter?
Well, that was really a focus for us going into this match, because last time we played Energy Australia, they really got away from us. So our focus really was to get a good start. It was probably a better start than even I expected, but it certainly kept us on our way for the rest of the match.
How did you turn yourself around? You had such investment in that torrid semi-final, and everybody expected you might be jaded, but there were no signs of that.
No, it was. I mean, everybody was just so focused, and everybody just wanted it so badly tonight. So, I mean, you only get one chance. You've got to get out there and give it all on that night. So, forgetting about the previous night's matches, the soreness and all that, you just get out there and you go for it.
You're expecting Sydney to recover throughout the game?
Oh, for sure. That was the point we were pressing the whole way through, even though we did have a substantial lead. They're the kind of team that can come back at you at any time and take that lead away from you. So we're really concentrating on maintaining that lead and pushing it out even further.
We noticed your bench did warm up at the end of the third quarter. What was going on there?
I'm not sure, actually. I can't tell you that. But I think, you know, we weren't going to be making any changes. We wanted to finish it off really well and finish it off strong, and that we did.
Would have to say, if there were changes made, it's probably testimony to the depth you had in the squad this season, and how really more than any other team you've used most of those players to contribute and lay the platform for the win.
And the thing is, everybody that did take the court throughout the Mobile League did a good job, and so as much as it was a good thing to have that depth, sometimes it's difficult as well to try and work out what is going to be the 7 that's going to get out there on court. But everybody that came on throughout the series did their job and did it well, and particularly tonight.
Hard to single anybody out, as you say, but Taverner and Lynch at the back just in brilliant form, and they share the honours as a best on court in the final.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they've been a great combination like through last year, and Janine coming back from injury, she did a fantastic job there tonight. And with Liz on the outside of her, it's just a great combination, and it's good to be out in front of that combination.
Simone, National League champions, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Let's take a final look at the stats to see if they shed any light on the outcome. And penalties were heavily against Sydney, 62 to 46. They were guilty of more turnovers as well, 48 to 37. Melbourne enjoyed much more possession, so they had 80 attempts to 55 from Sydney Energy. The scoreline was 59-39, and Melbourne's shooting percentage was also slightly better than Sydney Energy's. Well, an exciting program of international matches this year with both South Africa and New Zealand coming out. 4 tests in all. Let's look at the details of those. South Africa, the runners-up at the Worlds in Birmingham last year, play a one-off test against Australia on June the 1st in Perth. Then arch rivals New Zealand come across the ditch for 3 games, and the Silver Ferns will be keen to atone for their disappointing third in Birmingham. They meet Australia in Sydney, Adelaide and Melbourne on June the 22nd, 26th and 29th. So, get yourself a ticket for one of those matches if you live in or near one of those cities. Otherwise, you can watch it with us on the ABC. That's all for the moment, though, from the Adelaide Powerhouse. We've very much enjoyed bringing the Mobile League to you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. But for now, I'm Steve Rebellion. Goodbye from Adelaide.